many fans you were in this year.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the PDGA EUROTOUR, our first stop here at the Pro Forester tournament in Lagoda disc golf course, Varazdin, Croatia. We are bringing you the final 9 holes of the MPO lead card, presented to you by MDG Media. I'm Connor Wood, and with me once again, Elias Luukkonen.
Hello guys, excited to watch this final 9 holes of this exciting event. We have seen some hot scores, Paul McBeth shooting 5 under in the front 9, increasing his lead to 8 strokes above Jakub Semerád, in the tied for third Scott Stokely and Keiro Jogisalo. Looks like mostly a battle for second place, but also Paul needs to keep his composure and hopefully play well until the end.
We get started here on this back 9 with hole 10. A 254 meter par 4. You have this initial large guardian to contend with. You can play to the right or the left of it, although the left side Anheuser backhand or forehand hyzer is the most friendly for distance. Your first shot you want to battle up to anywhere near that solar panel, which then opens up your attack to the green. The drone is actually flying towards the FPO basket. MPO is tucked away behind the tree in the top right of frame, adding that extra element of distance and difficulty to the hole.
Yeah, this is another very difficult hole, coming in as the 5th most difficult hole. Very rarely birdied hole, but maybe our lead card can show us a couple of birdies. Scott going with the powerful hyzer sidearm. As we saw on the front 9, he relies heavily on his sidearm, both in the open and in the woods.
And a great looking shot there that should position him nicely. I think his second shot will shape nicer for a backhand, but still shooter's choice. As we see Paul playing a slightly more traditional line, going for the turnover, although this is very high, he is bleeding towards OB. Over the mound, you see that small river. Those orange flags mark him as out of bounds. He will be throwing from the left side of the mound. Looks like he may have enough distance to still save par, though.
Yeah, that was really an unforced error by Paul. The fairway is really wide to the right, and important thing to turn it over, but looks like Jakub is also fading towards the OB on the left side. Barely just stays on the hillside. He will have very awkward footing, but possibly still a chance even for the birdie from there.
You see Luke now shaping the Anheuser. Also goes a little bit left, but gets a long sustained turn, utilizing some more understability. He fights all the way up there towards that solar panel. That's a good 140 meter shot roughly that will position himself in the sweet spot to enter the green from the back or the front. As we see a true champion there helping Paul get his disc. Spoke to him after the round and he said he was happy to do so. Passionate player.
Many European disc golf fans really excited to see the 6-time world champion playing near their home grounds, as Paul is opting to go for the forehand shot, trying to fade over the hillside and towards the last tree just before the basket. Well short, but he will have easy time pitching up for his bogey from there. Going to be a first bogey of the round for Paul, though.
As we see Scott now well positioned, still going for the forehand. It is the tighter of the two gaps here, but he will be pushing to the left side of the final guardian as he begins to fade out a little bit early. He needs this to sit down. Actually hits the tree just fine. He was fading towards the big river there, OB on the right, but has a decent looking birdie putt. Forehand, quite a rare line to take here.
Yeah, luckily bounced a little bit off the tree because the tree is a huge bunker in front of the basket and makes putting also very difficult. As you saw, Jakub had difficult footing, had to go with the standstill driver, overstable driver shot. Landing near the far side of circle 2, but he still has a run at the basket. Let's see, Luke probably trying to swing the wide hyzer out around the right side of the tree. Let's see if he has the distance here, going very high. Just coming short of the tree, but actually rolling down inside the circle. That was a good result.
And nicely putting for birdie. You see a local member there. Tons of fishermen on this great and large Drava River. Some fish to be had. Paul with a simple little touchy upshot slides his way to just outside bullseye for a bogey save.
Yeah, good composure there from Paul. Not trying to do anything crazy. Let's see if Jakub can float it in from 20 meters. Just stays next to the basket. That's gonna be an easy par for him. Let's see if Scott can actually make this birdie, and that's an incredible putt. Having to dodge through those branches, flowing in the wind, and gets a great spinny Anheuser stroke there.
Yeah, in round 3, this did feel certainly like the windiest of the holes, coming straight off the river, no woods to protect them. We see Luke now for his birdie putt, just a little bit lifted by the wind. On that nose angle, finds the band. Likely taking a 4, but still 1 stroke on the leader here as Paul puts in a 5.
Yeah, bogey is also a very common score on this hole. It's an incredibly long hole, especially in this right-left headwind. So, not losing many strokes to the field with a bogey. But par is also green, and Scott with the great birdie. As we said, forehand. Showing really showcasing that long forehand he has.
And very well could have been the only person to birdie that hole the whole weekend, forehand. So, a very cool feat there. Happy to have that on coverage as we move to hole 11. A 113-meter par 3. It is a long, straight tunnel shot. A lot of players opting to release on hyzer through the gap and flip a disc up to flat. As the width is very narrow off the initial gap, it's hard to shape, but imperative that you hit it if you want to still secure your birdie.
Yeah, important here just to hit that first gap. After the first gap, fairway gets slightly wider. So whether it's a forehand, as Scott is showing here, a turnover forehand, or a backhand flip up hyzer, you do have some room to work with at the end of the fairway. As you can see, Scott going slightly through the left side bushes and just settling on the edge of the circle 1. That's a great touch forehand there.
Jakub now shaping a slightly more traditional line. He pushes the width completely, but keeps it inside and clean the whole way, just a few meters long of the basket. He's looking at a great spot there to find his birdie, putting him to 17 under for the round. Currently sitting in second place, one stroke over Scott, and Luke with an unfortunate kick out to the right side. That shows just how narrow that initial gap is, about 20 meters off the tee.
Yeah, and the tree that he hit is very commonly hit tree. It's in the middle of the line that you would naturally throw with a flat shot on this hole. That's why I need to throw this perfect hyzer flip from showcased by Paul McBeth. Going with a slight hyzer release on the right side of the gap and flipping up flat, and that was just a perfect showcase of angle control there.
As we see Luke from the right side rough looking to shape a forehand flex, had a nice gap to pierce out of the woods, finds himself at just about edge of circle, perhaps a low ceiling on that putt. Now left with this here. Maybe a soft Anheuser to negate the low ceiling. Not at all. Actually found it too high on the putt as he hits the band once again. Very close to putting these putts in.
As Scott makes it for the birdie from 9 meters away. His putting is looking very solid today. Able to make those edge of the circle putts for birdie as Jakub comes up and just barely misses. That's a rare feat to see Jakub missing from inside the circle. Normally a very strong putter.
Another strong putter there. Paul making sure not to leave that one on. A good bounce back after hole 10. Although he has a considerable cushion, I'm sure he's still playing every hole for birdie.
Yeah, absolutely. With his skill, with the skill of any of these players on the lead card, there is not a hole on the course that they are not trying to birdie.
Jakub finds his par there, and as Luke taps this one in for bogey as well. A little bit of a tough round for him here in the final round. He had a great performance in round 1 at 8 under, stayed on the lead card the whole way throughout as he battles into this final round, back 9. You see here hole 12. A 106-meter par 3 with a low ceiling and tight gap to hit off the tee. Once you pierce through, the fairway opens up into this nice field. With the fairway of 13 on the left, it's totally safe, although not advised to throw there. You also have a thick rough on the right, no more than 5 meters away from the basket. A lot of players will just simply play a straight shot, forehand or backhand. You can go anywhere from mid-range up to driver, so you can pick your shot and try to hit it.
Scott with the powerful low forehand that really suits the hillside at the end of the hole. Even going long off the basket, actually kind of over the sloping hillside from right to left from the tee pad's perspective. Forehand really plays good for the hillside, but as Paul is showing here, the backhand is also just perfect if you can keep it straight and not turn it over to the right side woods.
Paul's backhand shapes the fairway beautifully, slides right up to the pin, absolutely parked. He is not showing any signs of slowing down as he's beginning to run away here in this back nine.
Yeah, this is certainly one of the easiest holes on this back nine. All of these players are looking forward to getting inside the circle. You can see Jakub with the slightly understable lower shot trying to match the grade of the hillside, and he's right there inside 6 meters.
And Luke now looking to find his birdie. Slight grip lock and late release. He finds himself on that right side tree. Good to see a smile on his face as he still has about 90 or so meters to the basket.
Yeah,
Looks
Luke
like he may have picked up the same disc again.
might have been an almost throwing it into the basket. That was an incredible shot, and Luke certainly one of the players that's always in good spirits during the round and also outside the round. Really funny guy. And common to see a smile on his face as Scott makes another great putt from the edge of the circle. He's really feeling it today.
Sitting at 6 under for the round, birdied the last 3 holes in a row. Great composure as he continues to battle it out. Luke now to secure his par. Very smooth upshot, almost found birdie despite hitting first available. Very commendable as he'll move on to hole 13.
Yeah, good mental there after hitting the first tree off the tee and still throwing the perfect approach, as we see Jakub making it from 5 meters for the birdie. And Paul with just a casual tap in. We're not even going to see that because, let's be honest, he was going to make that 100% of the time.
The mystery remains though. As we move on to hole 13, a 195 meter par 4, certainly one of the most difficult holes on the course. About halfway up the fairway, you have this mound giving you a high floor as well as a low ceiling over it to contend with. Really difficult to progress significantly up the fairway with any given shot. You want to chip away, and as you go over this fallen tree or under with a roller, some people preferring that approach, you find the basket tucked away up on the hill to the right. A 4 is an absolutely fine score here, as this hole can bring big trouble and often makes or breaks a great round. The mystery is solved.
Paul did in fact make his putt from 2 meters. Now we can sleep at night. The hole 13 coming up is actually the most difficult hole on the course, averaging 0.81 strokes above par. So, and very rarely birdied hole. I'm still sure that many of these players are looking forward to getting the birdie, possibly, but par is going to be just fine. And really any drive that can beat the hillside that you can see in the middle of the screen is going to be an amazing result of the first shot.
The Scot gives a low and driven shot off the tee, maybe even cut rolling back towards the tee. Paul shaping the high anhyzer, the larger of the two gaps, the height also allowing it to crest over the hill slightly easier. As he fades out a touch early, will find the rough, but made it over that hill that Elias mentioned. That's a good shot despite being heavily obstructed.
Yeah, and I think Paul might actually be enough left where he has the backdoor route to the basket, but we'll have to see on his second shot. Jakub going for the more conventional straight shot down the middle. Problem with the straight shot is that it very easily ends up towards the left side of the fairway, where there are many thick bushes in the way. But Jakub is in the fairway. Let's see if he has any obstacles.
As Luke also takes the high turning anhyzer line, battling through. We saw a magnificent drive from him in the previous round, but this one unable to battle all the way over. He again looks up to the sky, trying to fight over the top. We'll see what he's left with. Scott as well with the overhead shot.
Yeah, Scott has really shown throughout this round the variety of shots that he has. He has shown the thumber, has shown the regular overhand throw. He's got all the tools. Jakub with a great looking forward. Unfortunately, just hitting the bottom of the log there. Bouncing to far side of circle 2. But it's a great putt to run from there, since there's a great backstop on the right side of the basket.
And Paul also showing his creativity and versatile skill set as he fights an overhead through the branches over the fallen log. Will give him a long look at the very elusive birdie on hole 13.
Yeah, you can see that Paul has, before starting disc golf, he actually played baseball, so a good power there with the overhand. And Scott just a little bit early, fading with the forehand towards the green, but we'll see. He will have an obstructed look from there, I would guess.
Luke now battling through that right side rough, incredibly thick, gives it a ton of speed with a sharp disc, and fights its way up to just outside the circle. Will have an obstructed look. Anything that's more than 10 is not only uphill, but with those hanging branches often in the way. Jakub, giving it a bid, finds that exact branch as it spins out a bit early.
Yeah, nice to see that aggressive bid uphill. I would expect the same from these other players. Paul missing it just barely low left, but he will settle for the par there. That would have been an incredible birdie save. Same with Luke, just missing it low.
As he catches cage, we see Scott here from an alright position given how much in the rough he is, and he makes another fantastic putt. The scramble master back at it finds himself a par on a very tough hole.
Yeah, that's a great par, and even though this is certainly considered a driver's course, you cannot really save bad driving with good putting. Scott is still showing that with good putting you can definitely increase your score by many strokes. He's made already a lot of good putts on this back nine and probably will continue doing similar things.
And I don't think he's even had too bad of drives. He's been throwing it pretty well, just leaving himself in that 7 to 10 tester range.
On the horizon, dawn is breaking, a brand new day. The best kept secrets of the Croatian Adriatic are waiting to be discovered.
As we move towards the second half of this back nine, we arrive at hole 14. A 158-meter par 4 that requires a straight to softwards fading left shot off the tee. Any good shot will land right about here, dissecting the hole in half. You want to throw about 80 meters and then 80 again, as you have very thick rough to the left and the right, as well as a low ceiling to contend with. A lot of players will often disc up and play low to the ground to ensure that they don't flare out or skip or fade too much, while ensuring that they get the distance up the fairway.
Yeah, this hole really gets tighter the further you advance down the fairway. The first shot is, the fairway is still kind of wide, as we see Scott going with an aggressive forehand turnover, very understable disc, unfortunately hitting the fairway with Anheuser angle and cut rolling into the right side woods. And Paul here with the more conventional backhand hyzer, trying to not skip too far to the left side of the fairway. He's right inside the edge of the fairway. That's a great shot. We'll have a bit of a hyzer look from there.
Do you think Scott was maybe trying to shape a forehand roller? I could imagine that if he caught that on a cut angle and stood up to flat, he could fire way down there.
Could possibly be true. I don't know what the man was thinking there. Probably has some smart ideas from his long and mature life. A couple of decent shots there to the fairway. Jakub looking forward to shaping a hyzer shot through this tight fairway, and that looks absolutely perfect, almost hitting the basket with the approach just inside the circle and long.
A dangerous bid from way down the fairway for Jakub. Paul in a nice spot, if anything a little bit pinched on the left. He'll need to swing this out wide enough, but in enough to beat those last trees, and he does with a friendly kick, well within the circle for his birdie. This is one of those holes that if you keep it on the fairway is pretty attackable, but once you head off it, can be very punishing.
Looks like Luke is kind of risking off the fairway, but stays on the edge. The bunker of trees we see just short right of the basket that Luke was heading towards is a really thick bunker. Even though discs sometimes go through it, if you end up in there, you really have very limited looks to the basket, as we see Scott pitching up to the fairway and still going with the forehand anhyzer, even from a position where many players would opt for the backhand hyzer.
I believe a Stokely Tour Series Berg there. sitting it down nicely. We will see Luke from the rough on the right side. Gives a penetrating putt out of the trees. Really nice to find himself a tricky birdie and his first here on the back nine.
That's a great birdie there, especially since he's been struggling for a bit this round. Great to see the man getting some green on the scorecard. Jakub with just a perfect putt. You could really see that out of his hand. It was in the middle the whole way. Very confident looking putt and clean back nine from him so far.
We see Paul now left with his putt remaining to put himself to 26 under. Currently 7 down for the round. With only a few holes left to go, he is once again maintaining that pace that he's setting at 9 or 10 under through 18. We see Scott now firing off putt that looks very centered, even a little bit strong side, and manages to slide its way out.
Unfortunately, with very little spin on the disc and a lot of speed, unable to grab those chains on the right side. Unfortunate miss there, but he'll walk away with the bogey and hopefully attack better on this next hole 15.
15 is a tricky but short par 4. Sitting at only 134 meters, you have a very tight tunnel to hit off the gap, likely an overstable low-speed disc that positions you to fight and weave through these fairly big and thick trees. You find the basket tucked away at the end of this on the right, slightly descending, and once again surrounded on all sides by fallen trees, very thick, often requiring an awkwardly angled putt if you go anything more than 3 or 4 meters deep of the pin.
Out of all of the holes on the course, this might very well create the most diversity in scores. It's one of the most frequently birdied holes, almost a third of the field taking birdie here, but also the same amount of players taking the bogey. Paul going with the low, looks to be a fairway driver, skips perfectly through the gap, and he's quite far down the fairway, only has about 50 to 40 meters left to the basket.
I believe his Athena there. One fortunate thing about the winds here in the final round is that it reduced some of the mosquitoes, which were really prevalent on holes 13 through 16 and also throughout the course. On this day, they were slightly more forgiving. We see a great shot from Jakub there, shaping through the gap and settling nice and soft.
Let's see, Luke looks to be going with a driver of sorts as well, fading well into the gap and hopefully still staying on the fairway. That's so far down there, even though he's on the left side, that he will have a good look at the basket, I would imagine. And Scott trying to maybe go further with the forehand on this hole. It really suits for this sort of flex turning forehand, and that's an incredible shot. He's almost inside circle 2 there. That is absolutely the best shot I have ever seen on this hole.
A nasty line to attack all the way almost to the pin here. Just shaped to perfection for Stokely. Jakub finding his trouble on the way. Such a hard line to shape that forehand and find the turn and fade at the right times. So that's a really impressive shot for Scott there.
Yeah, that was incredible. Luke going for the common forehand approach there. Just parking the hole. Great to see the man getting a couple of great holes in a row. And as you can see, Paul also has only a short forehand pitch up to the basket. Does that nicely, just outside the bullseye.
As we see Scott at a long eagle look here on 15. From the bushes, it will be tough to generate enough power.
Almost. That would have been such a cool eagle, but now he's actually a little bit long off the basket. Has to battle with those small trees that are plenty of on the long side of the green.
To be honest, I didn't even consider hole 15 as a potential eagle hole, but Jakub finds the birdie from way outside. Beautiful loft and spin on that putt, fades it into the heart of the chains as he puts 2 together now. Very much in play for these top positions. You see a look there, just dead center, super strong, never in doubt that that was sticking.
That was a great putt and really securing his, or trying to secure his second place after Paul McBeth, not letting Scott Stokely get any strokes on him, even though Scott makes the birdie from the bushes. That was very impressive play on this hole by Scott, really making easy work of this hole with one incredible drive. As we tap in the star frame on this hole 15, Sorry, not yet tapping in the star frame, still expecting Paul to make it from 4 meters, as he does. That's already a second star frame of the round. Great play by this group.
No doubt there, as we see. Hey, little rattle of the chains.
That's
Great
always
display.
nice to see. I know the crowd loves it as well.
They always do. As we move on to hole 16, a 98-meter par 3 through this initial tunnel. You are severely punished for an early or late release here, as you need to hit this gap here between these two trees. You want a straight pushing flight that once hitting the gap quite quickly goes left. You can fade out, skip to the left, even stall out if you try to push the height a little bit more with a low speed disc. This one is a very specific line, and you need absolute precision on the hyzer fade towards the end of the flight, timing it perfectly.
I would expect all of these guys to go with overstable driver here, unless maybe for Scott, because he really hasn't thrown any backhands in the woods. So I would expect Scott to go with the forehand and Paul here with an stable to overstable driver going to the right side of the gap, but hyzering in time. Actually hyzering just a bit early, catching the left side bushes after the gap.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just hitting a hyzer through the gap. You do need to push forwards through it and then get left. As you see Jakub fire just a little bit too straight. That looks to be tracking right towards the pin. Another example of a good shot, but not quite great.
Looks like Luke is hitting this shot great. Unfortunately, just a little bit inside. The angle out of his hand was really good. Very interested to see what Scott does with the forehand. In the first round he did go with the forehand roller, although now trying to get the extreme hyzer flip on the fairway. That's a decent result for the forehand.
And it was doing that super flip there, as that was fighting towards the left, found some of the rough. Luckily, none of our competitors in too thick of rough, which can definitely be found here on 16. Luke tossing a short hyzer up into the bullseye. Nicely done.
Really telling how difficult this hole is to birdie is that only 14% of the field was inside the circle putting for birdie on this hole. So it's a very specific line and a very specific distance as well. Let's see if Scott can give it a good run from 25. Almost does. That was a great run.
Looked to be walking it in, yeah. As you see him saying it was just this close. He thought that may have been going in. We see Paul here straddling out to the Anheuser forehand.
Paul might have enough of a lead right now to be comfortable with running this shot, as debatable whether he ran it or not, but he's got a huge lead, so maybe time to even have some fun on the course.
Jakub now from just outside the circle for his birdie. Doesn't opt for the step putt, but finds it anyway. Strong side. Another incredible putt for our former champion here, battling it out, putting 3 birdies down in a row. 4th on his back 9, sitting at 20 under par. Gets knuckles from Luke.
Deservedly so. You can see the clean low release that he has with a lot of spin. And a little bit of wobble on the release, but doesn't matter. Catches the right side chains. Scott taps it in for par.
And I like hole 16. It definitely rewards a shot that hits the gap, but severely punishes you if you don't hit it. I think that a good shot often gives you an opportunity, but equally as punishing if you don't. You can really have a significant separation in scores there on 16.
Yeah, certainly. It's a very nice hole.
Speaking of very nice holes, a beautifully framed shot. Hole 17 is an 82-meter par 3 tunnel shot the entire way. You can see the basket as well as all the rough on the left and right. Also a low ceiling. Although this may look like a simple putter shot for a lot of the MPO field, a lot of players will disc up to something like a mid-range to ensure they don't need to push that high ceiling and battle their way down the tunnel.
This is actually one of the only 2 holes on the course that average under par, just barely by 0.01 strokes under. It's the average for the field. We see Jakub going with a very low penetrating shot with a fairly stable disc, trying to just keep it straight for the whole flight. Tails off a little bit to the left, but he's got a circle to look. Paul with a little bit more of a slightly understable mid-range, a little bit more height, a softer flight, and he's on the edge of the circle, hitting the last Guardian tree on the left.
We'll see Luke now looking to end strong. 2 birdies through the last 3 holes. As he has the full body stretch out there off the tee, battles through everything right up to bullseye, used the full width available to him, and will be finding another birdie.
That's great. It seems like Luke is really starting to feel it at the end of the round. Great to see, as we see Scott trying to throw just a perfectly straight forehand. Really nice velocity on the disc, able to keep it straight even just with a little bit of a hyzer angle. He's in 5 meters. That's a great shot there. Let's see if Jakub can keep the hot putting streak alive on this 13-meter putt, as he does in the middle.
There's a reason that it says Jakub Semerád World Putting Champion on his putter, showing us that skill set here. Another incredible putt to put 4 in a row together. Paul now for his birdie.
Another world champion, not in putting, but just in disc golf, and showing off that he could also be the putting champion. That's a great one from Circle 2. Really just trying to repeat his 10-under round from yesterday.
Scott with a fantastic tee shot to give himself a short putt, and Luke even closer to secure his birdie here. As we mentioned, had some struggles in this final round, but showed in the first 2 he is absolutely well equipped to put on a great performance, and happy to have him joining us here for this final round lead card coverage as we get another rattling of the chains, another star frame for our lead card before we move on to the last and final hole of the tournament. Hole 18 is a 95-meter par 3 with an initial tunnel and tight gap to hit. You want to miss that big tree on the left that we just flew by, and if you can, you pierce out into this very open fairway and green where you have a slightly elevated basket to try and secure your last birdie of the tournament. Beautiful hole, good way to end it out. Incredible tournament.
Yeah, it's been a great tournament and great play by this lead card. We have seen extremely hot play, especially from Paul and also Jakub lighting up this back 9, and everybody on the card having good vibes and shooting some great birdies on the back 9. Let's see if they can do the same on this demanding hole 18.
And also shooting a nice picture together of your 2023 Pro Forester lead card. Jakub softly overturned. When you do leave the woods, the wind picks up significantly, as you see now some trees dancing in the wind. Paul opting for that soft forehand flex. I think the most natural shape to the fairway. A great shot, even giving it a run, positioning him up there in the green. I think with his strong lead, it is quite simply a formality now as he looks to close out his tournament.
Absolutely, that's a great performance by Paul, as we see Luke going towards the left side of the fairway. Somehow the left side trees seem to be pulling the drives. I don't know how is it possible, but many people end up on the left side of the fairway off the initial gap. Scott very comfortable with this shot, able to throw the flip-up forehand. Unfortunately, a little bit low. The line really looks pretty good.
And he did just opt for that standstill, not choosing to get a complete walk up there. Still has the power, I'm sure, as we see Jakub now from the mouth of the tunnel, playing the wind a little bit with the forehand hyzer, digs it into the stump. A great way to end out his round.
Yeah, perfect approach there. I'm really happy I'm really sure that he's happy with his score right now. Looks like he's going to be able to secure the second place in the competition, at least judging by these scores we have on the lead card.
As you saw Luke there fire his approach up to the green, leaving Scott now with this very long putt, floats it up into the wind, drops it down just by the stump as well. A really opportune moment now as Paul looks to secure his first European win of the 2023 season. Locks it in with a fantastic birdie with a round score of 10 under par. An absolute champion.
Yeah, absolutely dominating the field, leading over second place by 8 strokes, as we see Luke tapping in the par. Luke, even though he had a worse round today, nothing to hang his head about, as we see Jakub tapping in for second place. Scott giving some love, always a nice guy on the course. as he also taps it in and gets his European Open and USDGC spot
And
at the same time.
Nice guy off the course as well. Even said that he may feel happier than the man who won it himself. A third place for Scott Stokely, a second place for Jakub Semerád, and your Pro Forester champion, first place MPO leader, Paul McBeth.
Yeah, really great to see Paul coming back to the winner's circle after a weaker performance last weekend at the Estonian Open. He himself said that he figured his throw out in practice, and you can really see that, just destroying the competition on this difficult course.
Very technical, but an incredible weekend requiring power, precision, focus, and determination. This course needed all the tools to take it down, and you see Paul McBeth do just that. In the solo lead position with a round of 10 under, taking the lead, Jakub in second, Scott in third. We see the new course record and hot round of the tournament, Elias Luukkonen in 5th place. Incredible, my man.
Thank you, that is myself. It's certainly the best round of my career, and nice to get on the scoreboard here.
It was a pleasure to do this coverage with you, and thank you to everyone who joined us for this PDGA EUROTOUR kickoff of the season. Make sure to join us on the next one, and we will see you there.
Thank you guys for watching.